Howdy, hi. It is Do Your Job Sports College Football Week 5 picks and predictions. Let's get into the video. First things first, we're going to recap the previous week's results. We went 7-9, so not the best, but close to 500. We'll see if we can get above that mark for this week. First game, we had Army as they faced off against. Hold on, let me pull it up. They played Rice. We had Army minus 6.5. They killed them in that game. Next one, the over 53.5 Ball State versus Central Michigan. That was a no sweat. We had Bowling Green plus 23 versus Texas A&M. That was free money. Iowa minus 2.5 versus Minnesota. It was looking rocky there at the beginning of the game. They were down 14-7 at halftime, but second half was all Hawkeyes, so that one was never really in doubt. Oregon State minus 4.5 versus Purdue. Purdue, very bad at basketball or football. Will be fading them for most of the year. Next one, Colorado minus 2 versus Baylor. That game was absurd. If you want to watch some highlights, I highly recommend you go watch that one. Then we had Tulsa plus 1.5 versus Louisiana Tech. Still confused as to how Tulsa was not favored in that game, but okay. Then losers, we had the over 64.5 App State versus South Alabama. We lose by 3 points because the App State only scores 14. Arkansas State plus 22.5 versus Iowa State. This game never stood a chance. That Arkansas State game versus Michigan might have been a fluke. Not sure what to think about it, especially after what Michigan just did to USC. LSU minus 22.5 versus UCLA. They do not cover. They played like shit in the first half. They won the second half by a lot, but we missed this 22.5 just barely. We had Arizona State plus 3.5 versus Texas Tech. They got schmung dingled in that game. Oklahoma State minus 2.5 versus Utah. They played like ass. They lose the game. I think by like 10 or 12 points, was never really close. Georgia Tech plus 10.5 versus Louisville. They lose by 12. I was sad. USC minus 4.5 versus Michigan. That one just, I'm fading USC until Lincoln Riley can win an important game because his entire football coaching career he hasn't been able to win shit. So fuck you USC, fuck you Lincoln Riley. We had TCU minus 2.5 versus SMU. They got murdered. I think SMU had a punt return for a touchdown, 3 defensive, whether it was pick six or fumble returns for touchdowns. TCU offense didn't play horrible. They just turned the ball over too much, and then their defense wasn't able to stop them either. Then we had the over 48.5 Kansas State versus BYU. They only scored 3 points in the fourth quarter. We missed by, I think, 3 points total. I wanted to cry. So that is how we did 7-9 overall for the previous week. Let's try to improve on that one for week 5. All right, let's get into the picks. First game I'm taking, it is BYU heading into Baylor, taking the Mormons at plus 2.5. Not sure why BYU isn't favored here. We just saw Baylor blow an almost impossible game to Colorado. BYU's got quality wins over Kansas State and SMU. Baylor has beaten Tarleton State and Air Force as their only 2 wins. They lost to Utah and they lost to Colorado. So every single time they've played a good opponent, they've lost. BYU averages 447 yards per game. Baylor only averages 377. 290 yards of that, BYU's average comes through the air compared to only 197 for Baylor. So they're going to have a tough time keeping up with this BYU offense. BYU also has the much more superior defense, ranked 22nd in the country, only giving up 254 yards per game compared to Baylor's 152nd ranked defense, giving up just over 300 a game. The thing is with BYU is most of the guys on their team are like 22 and 23 years old because they're Mormons and they got to go do their service or whatever. Baylor's got young guys. BYU's got old, experienced dudes with like 3 kids and a mortgage to pay. So give me the Mormons plus 2.5. They know what's good. They got multiple wives over there. They're living up right. Next game, Wisconsin and USC. I'm taking Wisconsin plus 14.5. This is more of a I am fading USC until they prove to me that Michigan game was a fluke and they're actually not dog shit at football. So that's really where this comes from. Wisconsin's coming off a bye week, but the week before they got absolutely smoked by Alabama at home. I think that final score was 41-10. It was gross. So a good bounce back angle for them here. They get a lot of time to watch USC film. They got to see them play Michigan, another Big Ten team. So I think that will definitely help them keep this game close. In terms of matchup, USC clearly has the better offense. There's not even a question about that. But I think Wisconsin's defense is going to play similar to the level of Michigan did. Maybe not quite top tier like Michigan, but Wisconsin's got a solid defense. They're middle of the pack in the Big Ten. So I think they should be able to hang tight with this USC team. I might be sprinkling them on the money line. I think this is a really good get right game. I don't trust Lincoln Riley. They got a young quarterback, and with 14 and a half, I think I like that number. Next game, this is just a principle game. If Mike Leach, if you're listening up from heaven, this is for you. It's Mississippi State plus 38 and a half against Texas. Like, I understand Mississippi State ain't good and Texas is really good, but 38 and a half for an SEC game, what this might be Texas's no, I'm not going to make that statement, so I'm not even sure. But either way, how are we almost getting 40 points in an SEC matchup? Texas coming off a routing 51-3 of ULM, which they were supposed to do. ULM's not very good. Mississippi State coming off a 17-point loss at home to Florida. Definitely not what you wanted if you're a Mississippi State fan. In terms of numbers, Texas obviously dominates every single category one could. Their offense is absurd, whether it's Arch Manning or Quinn Ewers behind at quarterback. You're going to be putting up numbers regardless. Their defense also insane. I'm just hoping Mississippi State can hang in there. The one thing they are kind of good at is passing. They're 49th in the country in passing yards. Now, granted, most of that is because they're down 20 points in the fourth quarter and they have to try to make it up. But if they're down 20 points in the fourth quarter, I'll take it because we're getting 38 and a half. So I'm going to take the 38 and a half. I think this number is just way too big for an SEC game. That's it. That's the whole thing I got. Next game, matchup of the day, Georgia, Bama. I'm taking Bama plus 2.5 at home. Bulldogs, I think, are fraudulent. After seeing their performance at Kentucky in the last week, I do not think they're going to be able to stop Bama's offense. They're going to struggle and big time to get through this Alabama Tide defensive line and all the backs they got in the backfield, the corners. Alabama, 26th in rushing yards a game, 21st in total yards a game this year. Georgia, 97th in total yards per game, 142nd in rushing yards a game. Not normally the kind of numbers you're used to hearing from Georgia running back, but they have not been able to do that on offense at all this year. So if you're not going to be able to run the ball against Kentucky, what do you think you're going to do in Bama? I'll answer you that question. It is Jack Diddley shit. I don't see how they're getting the ball through that Alabama defensive line. That's going to rely on Beck to throw the ball, which obviously, based on the Kentucky game, he's not very good at. So I'm going to take Bama at home, more experienced QB. You got the home atmosphere. Give me that Bama defense, baby. Roll Tide. Next game we're looking at, it is Illinois plus 17.5 at Penn State. This should be a really good matchup for Big Ten. Penn State's kind of struggled early in a few of their easier matchups. They haven't really played anyone very good. I think Illinois is a more experienced veteran team. They've played solid competition this year, so give me the Fighting Illini plus 17.5. Illinois, 2 high-quality wins this season so far. One at home against at the time, ranked Kansas team, and then one on the road against a ranked Nebraska team. Penn State's best win is a Week 1 win at West Virginia, who's not very good. Then they almost lost to Bowling Green in Week 2, and then obviously they had a smash spot versus Kent State, so we're just going to throw that one out the window. Kent State might not beat some high school football teams. Illinois always find a way of sticking around in these games. I remember watching a lot of Ohio State games where Illinois was a real pain in the ass, if you know what I mean. This Penn State offense is definitely going to struggle to be able to move the ball against this Illinois defense. It's going to be the best they've played so far this season. Should be close to the Nebraska game for what Illinois' got going on. So I'll take Illinois plus 17.5. If they were able to win in Nebraska, I think they should be able to maybe not win at Penn State, but definitely keep it within this 17.5 number. They got a good quarterback back there, solid defense. So give me the Fighting Illini plus 17.5. Next game, Washington State plus 7 at Boise. I don't understand in what world why Washington State should be getting plus 7 here. I think the wrong team is favored. If you would have given me Washington State -3, I probably would have taken it. Washington State, coming off a win in overtime against San Jose State, did not play well, but they were able to get the win. Then in the previous weeks, they beat Washington and Texas Tech, so they have experience beating good veteran teams so far this season. Boise State had beaten Portland State and Georgia Southern while also losing to Oregon. Now, obviously, Oregon's a very tall task to ask to beat, but they were able to get the 2 wins in the games they needed to. These teams are 10th and 14th in yards per game, 12th and 14th in points per game so far this season. This one should be an absolute shootout. I'm talking just ho hum, chuck that thing on down there, or receivers in the general proximity. Now, I am going to give Washington State the edge, seeing as though they're undefeated and they have a mobile running quarterback that really likes to get out on his legs and run the ball. Boise State ain't got that. So give me State +7, wrong team favored. Next game, this might be my favorite bet. Maryland heads to Indiana. Give me Indiana -7. I don't understand how this line is only -7. This should be closer to -14. I think I still would have taken it if this one was still -14. Indiana got one of the best offenses and defenses in the entire country. They are 11th in yards per game on offense. They are 7th in yards per game allowed on defense at 219.5 yards. They're not even allowing 220 yards a game. That is absurd. Maryland does throw the ball well on offense, but that is skewed because they have played teams like UConn and Villanova. And the 2 games where they had real opponents, they lost to Michigan State 27-24, and then they beat Virginia 27-13. Indiana will be able to score a bajillion points on them here. They were able to sling a number up against UCLA. Maryland ain't got that kind of defense UCLA's got, and Indiana's at home now. And I don't think Maryland's able to score more than 14 points in this one. Give me a 38-10 kind of game here. Indiana -7. Cash it. Final game, Liberty App State. This is on principle because I know a lot of y'all watched that App State game on Thursday where they got absolutely manhandled by South Alabama. So for that reason, I'm taking Liberty -3. Liberty coming off a nice comeback win against Eastern Carolina at home. Every single time when I'm score watching on Saturday, I just see Liberty go down early, and then they just have this monumental second half comeback where I'm like, damn, this is the Liberty of old. This is like Malik Willis from 5 years ago. They doing mean things. But yeah, it's more of a I have zero faith in App State. They just played one of the worst football games I've seen ever. They lost 48-14 at home against South Alabama. They allowed them to run for 320 yards. And it wasn't even like a difficult 320. It looked effortless. You got handed the ball as a running back, didn't matter what the nameplate on the back of your jersey was. You immediately just got 10 yards. To the left, to the right, down the middle. You could have ran backwards 20 yards and then forwards for 30 yards just for shits and giggles. They got no way of stopping anybody on defense. It's a problem. So, give me Liberty. Give me the -3. Let's get after it. All right, that is going to do it for me and this video. I appreciate you guys tuning in and watching. If you could, hit that like and subscribe button. It would mean a lot. And I'll catch y'all in the next one. Peace.